Come outside with me a minute. It's early. One of those late summer mornings where the air still has a little cool left in it, and the sun hasn't cleared the roofline yet. And when you turn back toward the house, you see them. Two dark footprints, right there in the grass where you walked. The dew is still down, and your shoes brushed it off, and now the lawn is holding the shape of where you've been. It'll be gone in 20 minutes. But right now, the yard remembers you. I've been walking out onto lawns a very long time, my friends. I still stop for that. And then I do what you do. I look across the fence. Because there's always one, isn't there? One lawn on the street so deep and dark it almost looks blue in the morning shade. And next to it, yours looks tired, a little pale, a little like it's trying its best. Folks have told me the same thing for 40 years. That fella must be spending a fortune. Some program. Some truck with a tank on the back. Most of the time, that simply isn't true. 5 things make a lawn go dark green. And 4 of those 5 cost you nothing, not $1. The 5th costs about as much as a sandwich, and I'll tell you exactly how much of it to use, because that's the part everybody gets wrong. But first, something you can do in the next 60 seconds. Because your lawn has already told you what it's missing. Nobody ever taught you how to read it. Go to a patch that looks pale. Not the worst spot, not the best. Something in the middle. Crouch down, or lean over if crouching isn't in the cards anymore, and part the grass with your fingers. Push it open like you dropped your keys in there. Now look at the bottom, where the old growth is. If the yellow is worst on the oldest leaves, the ones down low, and the lawn is growing slow and thin and hasn't needed mowing in a while, that's hunger. That lawn wants feeding. But if those old leaves still hold decent color, and it's the newest growth up top that looks washed out, and the lawn is still growing fine, still needs cutting every week, that's something else entirely. That lawn isn't hungry. It can't reach the iron. That's not my opinion. That's out of a turfgrass publication from the LSU Ag Center, written by a specialist named Thomas Koski. Old leaves yellow first with nitrogen. New leaves yellow first with iron. 2 different problems that look identical from the porch, and completely different from 6 inches away. 60 seconds. No money. No test kit. And now you know which of the 5 to do first. That alone was worth coming outside for, and we've barely started. Now, one thing I have to settle first, or I'll give half of you advice that's flat out wrong for your yard. Lawns in this country come in 2 families, and the calendar for one is nearly the opposite of the other. Up north, you're most likely growing cool season grass. Kentucky bluegrass, tall fescue, ryegrass. Here's how you know without looking it up. Your lawn stays green deep into fall, sometimes till the snow, and it suffers in July. August is when it looks worst all year. Down south, it's the other way around. Bermuda, zoysia, St. Augustine, centipede. That lawn loves heat. It's at its best in July, and then cold weather comes and it goes brown all winter. And every year some neighbor who just moved down from Ohio is certain the whole yard has died. It hasn't. It's sleeping. And here's why it matters. Cool season grass gets fed in late summer and fall, and again in late spring. Warm season grass gets fed late spring through summer, and you ease off going into fall. Feed the wrong one at the wrong time, and you don't just waste money. You can set the lawn back. So do me a favor. Drop a comment with your state and what kind of grass you've got, even if you're only half sure. I'm curious who's out here with me this morning. Some of the sharpest gardening I ever learned came out of a comment from somebody 4 states away who'd been doing it right for 30 years. One more piece of housekeeping, and it'll save you from the most common mistake in this whole business. You need to know roughly how big your lawn is. Don't go looking for the tape measure. Here's how the old-timers did it, and it's plenty close enough. Stand at one corner of the front lawn. Take a good long stride, the kind where you're really reaching. That's about 3 feet. Walk the length, counting. Then the width. Multiply the 2 numbers, then multiply that by 9. 20 steps by 12 is 240. Times 9, a little over 2,000 square feet. That's your front yard, and for most American homes the answer lands somewhere between 1,500 and 4,000. Write it down. On the fridge, in the back of the checkbook. You'll need it, and I'll show you why. All right, my friends. Let's begin. Number 1 is free. You can do it this afternoon, and I'd bet money half of you have had it backwards for years, without one person ever mentioning it. Raise your mower. Then sharpen the blade. Start with the height, because it feels wrong to a lot of people. Something in us thinks a shorter cut looks tidier, but a lawn cut short is a lawn under stress. Scalp it, and you strip away the leaf that does the work, expose the pale lower stems that have never seen sun, and open the soil to bake. So raise that deck. The University of Missouri puts cool season grass at 2.5 to 3.5 inches, and warm season at 1.5 to 2.5. And here's what isn't obvious. A taller lawn doesn't just grow better, it looks darker. More leaf between you and the ground, less bare dirt showing through, and a shadow under the canopy that deepens the whole color. Same grass, same soil, just standing up straighter. And along with that comes a rule I'd like you to carry the rest of your gardening life. Never take more than 1/3 of the leaf in one cut. The University of Wisconsin Extension says it plainly. Cutting more than 1/3 at once makes the turf more vulnerable to stress and pests, slows how fast it recovers, and lets light down onto bare soil where weed seeds are waiting. So if you mow at 3 inches, you cut when it hits 4.5, not 7. And if the lawn gets away from you, don't fix it in one pass. Take a little off, wait 3 days, take a little more, sneak up on it. Now the sharpening. This is the free one inside the free one. I have watched more people fertilize a lawn that didn't need fertilizer when what it needed was 10 minutes with a file. A dull blade doesn't cut, it tears. That same Wisconsin publication describes it exactly. The frayed tips of torn leaves dry out quickly, giving the lawn a brownish to whitish appearance, and the turf loses more water through those ragged ends. Stand at the curb the day after mowing with a dull blade, and the whole yard has a gray cast, like somebody breathed on a window. Aaron Patton, the turf grass specialist at Purdue, says a clean cut heals faster, loses less water, and lets the plant get on with photosynthesis, and that homeowners should sharpen at least twice a season. Here's the test, 5 seconds. The day after you mow, look at the tips, clean and squared off, you're fine. Fuzzy, stringy, split like the end of an old rope, that blade needs attention. And I want to tell you where that mower of yours came from, because I think about it every spring. In 1830, in a woolen mill in Stroud, England, a machinist named Edwin Beard Budding stood watching a machine shave the fuzz off newly woven wool, a cylinder of spiral blades, turning against a fixed edge, leaving the cloth smooth. And Budding thought about the lawns outside, about the men with scythes. He got his patent that August, and the wording has stayed with me for years. Machinery, he called it, for the purpose of cropping or shearing the vegetable surfaces of lawns, grass plats, and pleasure grounds. Shearing, not tearing. Every mower on your street descends from that machine, and most of them, right now, are tearing. 2 sets of blades, if you can manage it. Sharpen both over winter, fresh one in spring, swap at mid-season. Then it's never a chore. It's just a Tuesday. All right. Number 2. This is the one, my friends. If you take nothing else from this morning, take this. Stop bagging your clippings. I already know what some of you are saying, because your father said it and mine did too. Clippings cause thatch. Clippings smother the grass. Bag it, haul it to the curb, keep it clean. So let me answer that head on. The University of Georgia Extension puts it flatly. Research has determined that thatch buildup is caused by grass stems, shoots, and roots. Not clippings. Clippings are mostly water. They break down in a couple of weeks and vanish. Now here's what you've been throwing away. Penn State ran the numbers over 3 years on Kentucky bluegrass. The clippings coming off that lawn contained between 46 and 59% of all the nitrogen that had been put down as fertilizer. More than half. Every bag you dragged to the curb was more than half of what you just paid for. The University of Missouri says clippings left on the lawn supply up to 1/4 of its total fertilizer needs on their own. And a study by Kelly Kopp and Carl Gillard, published in 2002, put it as plainly as science ever puts anything. When clippings were returned, nitrogen rates could be cut by 50% or more, with no drop in turf quality. 50% of your fertilizer bill, for doing less work. And that's what I love about it. This isn't a tip where you get up earlier or buy a gadget. This one is you doing less. You take the bag off, put it in the garage, and go sit down. There was a program down in Texas years back called Don't Bag It, and they tracked what happened to people's Saturdays. Those homeowners mowed about one extra time a month, but every mowing got 35 minutes shorter. Over 6 months, they got back an average of 7 hours. 7 hours handed back to you for putting the bagger down. Now the one real problem, because it does happen, sometimes clippings clump, and those wet gray ropes will smother the patch underneath. 2 fixes. Mow when the grass is dry, late morning once the dew's off, and mow a little more often so you're never taking a huge amount at once. If you do get clumps, scatter them with a leaf rake. Somewhere in the last 60 years, we decided the healthiest thing a lawn produces was garbage. We invented the bag, then the truck, to haul the bag away, then the fertilizer to replace what was in the bag. My grandmother never bagged a thing in her life. Not one clipping, not one leaf. She'd have thought you'd lost your mind. So tell me down in the comments, did your mother or your grandmother bag the clippings, or did they let them lie? I have a feeling I know how most of those stories go, and I'd love to hear yours. All right. Number 3. Now we spend a little money, but not much, and the whole trick is in how you spread it out. Feed the lawn light and often, not heavy and rarely. Here's the mistake, and it's an understandable one. A little fertilizer greens the lawn up, so more must green it up faster. So folks buy the big bag and put down a heavy load all at once. What you get is a surge. Fast, soft, floppy growth that has you mowing twice a week. And soft growth is weak. The University of Missouri warns that nitrogen above 1 pound per 1,000 square feet in spring pushes out unnecessary flushes of leaf growth and may leave the lawn more vulnerable come summer. Think of it the way you'd think about supper. Nobody gets healthy eating one enormous meal a month. Steady is what builds a thing. So, smaller amounts, spread out. The professionals call it spoon feeding. Virginia Tech notes cool season lawns traditionally get between 1 and 3.5 pounds of actual nitrogen per 1,000 square feet across a whole year. The whole year, not one Saturday. Now, timing, and here's where those two families part company. Cool season grass, up north. The most valuable feeding of your entire year lands right around Labor Day. Your lawn has just come through the worst of the summer. Nights are cooling, roots are waking back up, and everything you give it now goes into building. Then another light feeding 6 to 8 weeks later. If you feed only once all year, make it that one. So if you're watching this in late summer, you're standing right at the door of the best window you'll get. Don't let it pass. Warm season grass, down south. Your feeding runs late spring through summer, while the grass is actively growing. Then you ease off as fall comes on. And there's a real reason to ease off. NC State advises no more than 0.5 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet on Bermuda grass in September, to reduce the risk of a disease called spring dead spot. Texas A&M adds that you shouldn't fertilize during a hot, dry stretch in late summer, when the lawn can't use it anyway. So for my southern friends, if it's blazing and dry right now, wait for the heat to break. The lawn isn't ignoring you, it's holding its breath. All right, number 4. This is the fast one. This is where you look out the window 2 mornings later and something has genuinely changed. Iron. Iron gives grass that deep, almost blue-black richness you see on a golf course in the evening. And it does something nitrogen can't. It darkens the color without pushing a burst of growth. The University of Florida Extension explains that adding iron can give the dark green color you're after without stimulating the excessive growth that follows a nitrogen feeding. Color without the mowing. That's the appeal. Now I have to slow down, because there are 3 things about iron that almost nobody tells you correctly. The first, you measure iron by your lawn, not by your bucket. I've heard people say, put 2 spoonfuls in a gallon of water, but think it through. That same gallon might cover a strip by the mailbox, or get stretched across your whole front yard. Same gallon, wildly different amount landing on each blade. The water is just the delivery truck. It is not the dose. The dose is set by square footage. The University of Florida gives roughly 2 ounces of iron sulfate dissolved in 3 to 5 gallons of water per 1,000 square feet. And a trial out of Michigan State in the late 70s mapped the whole range. At 2 ounces per 1,000, no burn, but not much visible response either. At 4 and 8 ounces, a definite greening with no burn at all. It wasn't until 12 ounces that they saw scorched leaf tips, So there's your window, and it's a comfortable one. 2 to 8 ounces per 1,000 square feet. Start low. You can always go again in 3 weeks. You cannot unburn a lawn. And this is why I had you pace off the yard. 2,000 square feet out front means 4 to 8 ounces total. Now you're not guessing. Now you're gardening. The second thing, those ounces are weight, not volume. I know. Sounds small. It is not small. An ounce on a kitchen scale and an ounce in a measuring cup are 2 entirely different amounts of a granular mineral. A little flat kitchen scale costs less than a bag of fertilizer and will outlast both of us. Weigh it into an old jar once, mark the level on the side, and you never weigh it again. If you truly have no scale, use less than you think. Half of what you guessed. The low end of this range is safe. The high end is not. The third thing, and this one saves you real money at the store. Buy iron to spray on the leaf, not granules to spread on the ground. The reason is simple chemistry. Iron that lands in the soil oxidizes quickly and turns into a form the plant cannot take up. The University of Florida says plainly that granular iron isn't recommended unless it's in a chelated form, which is the expensive version. Iron sprayed onto the leaf goes straight into the blade. That's why it works in a day or two instead of not at all. So it's a pump sprayer dissolved in water, out onto the grass. Iron sulfate, sometimes labeled ferrous sulfate. A few pounds carries you through several seasons. Now the honest limits, because I won't sell you a miracle. That color is temporary. Florida puts it at roughly 2 to 4 weeks, and Michigan State explains why. Iron doesn't move around inside the plant, so once it's in the leaf, it stays in the leaf, and next time you mow, a good bit of it leaves in the clippings. So you go again every 3 or 4 weeks if you want to hold it. And iron is not a substitute for feeding. Iron is color. Nitrogen is the building material. A hungry lawn sprayed with iron is a hungry lawn that looks better for a fortnight. Now the safety talk, and I want you to actually listen. Wear gloves. Wear something over your eyes. Don't breathe the dust while mixing. Follow the label on the bag you bought, because that label is written for that product, and it overrules anything I say. And iron stains. It stains hard. The Kentucky Extension has a photograph in their iron publication of iron sulfate staining a wet sidewalk, and it's a sight. Keep it off the concrete, the brick, the painted siding, and your good shoes. If some lands where it shouldn't, hose it right then, not later. Spray in the cool of morning or evening, on a still day, when the lawn isn't already suffering from heat or drought. Never mix it with another lawn product. Keep folks and pets off until it's dry. And now I want to speak to those of you thinking, that's not going to happen for me. Maybe you can't drag a hose around the house anymore. Maybe a full sprayer is more than your shoulder wants. Then skip it, genuinely. Skip number 4. Because here's the truth I want you to hold on to. 4 of the 5 things in this video are free and need nothing but a mower and a hose. Raising the deck, a sharp blade, letting the clippings lie, watering properly. Those 4 alone will take a tired, pale lawn and turn it into a good, honest green. Iron is the finish coat, the last 5%. It's lovely, and I use it, but a lawn mowed high with a sharp blade, fed steadily, and watered deeply, is already a lawn that people notice. Don't let the 1 step you can't do stop you from the 4 you can. And if you do want it, a 1-gallon hand pump done in sections, with a sit-down in between, is a fine way to spend a morning. There's no prize for finishing fast. All right, number 5. This is the one that decides whether everything else holds. Water deep. Water early. Water seldom. Cornell puts the target simply. About 1 inch of water a week, including whatever the sky gives you. Best delivered in 1 or 2 good soakings rather than a little every day. And they name the hour. 4 in the morning to 8 in the morning. The blades dry off in the early sun instead of sitting wet all night, which is how lawn disease gets its foothold. Now here's why depth matters, and I'd rather give you the picture than the terminology. Roots aren't lazy. Roots aren't ambitious either. Roots go where the water is, and they stop where it stops. Sprinkle a little every evening and you keep a thin, wet layer at the surface, so that's where the roots stay. Shallow, 2 inches down, in the part of the soil that dries first and heats fastest. Then 1 hot week comes in August, or you visit the grandkids for 4 days, and that lawn goes pale almost overnight, because there was never anything underneath it. Virginia Tech recommends soaking deep enough to wet the root zone about 4 inches down, and notes that light, frequent watering does the opposite, encouraging shallow roots and helping weed seeds germinate. And something else is happening down there that most folks never hear. The University of Nebraska Extension makes the point that constantly wet soil at the surface blocks oxygen from moving down into the ground, and roots need oxygen in those little pockets between soil particles to live. So the daily sprinkle isn't only training roots to stay shallow, it's slowly suffocating the ones that tried to go deep. Grass roots need to breathe. I don't think that ever occurs to anybody, but it's true. 2 tricks, both free, both older than I am. Set an empty tuna can on the lawn before you turn the sprinkler on. When there's an inch of water in the can, you've put down an inch. Now you know how long your sprinkler needs to run, and you know it forever. Then, a few hours later, push a long screwdriver into the ground. If it slides down 6 inches with steady pressure, you watered properly. If it stops short and you have to lean on it, you watered the top and nothing else. A tuna can and a screwdriver. That's the whole irrigation system. And between waterings, let the top of the soil actually dry out a little. That gap isn't neglect. That gap is the invitation. That's what sends the roots looking downward. Now, 3 spots I want to be honest about, because otherwise you'll do everything here and still stand there frustrated. The strip along the driveway. That concrete pushes heat into the soil all day, and the ground is packed hard from decades of car doors and trash cans. It fades first and recovers last. Water it longer, mow it higher, forgive it. Under the big shade tree. That grass isn't fighting for light so much as fighting a tree for water, and it loses every time. Raise the mower higher there than anywhere. Expect thinner growth, and consider whether that spot might be happier as a mulched bed. That's not giving up, that's listening. And the spot where the dog goes, there's no product that fixes that. Water it well right afterward, and know that a dog and a perfect lawn have never once coexisted in the history of the world. And I'd take the dog. Now here's a piece of honesty you deserve, that almost nobody in this business will say out loud. Some of the color in that lawn across the fence was decided before your neighbor ever moved in. There's an organization called the National Turfgrass Evaluation Program that has tested grass varieties across the country for decades, and one thing they score, alongside disease resistance and drought tolerance, is what they call genetic color, rated 1 to 9. 1 is light green, 9 is dark green. It's the color the plant simply has, before anybody feeds it anything. Some grasses are born darker. That's the whole secret behind some of those lawns. I'm not telling you that to take the wind out of your sails. I'm telling you because knowing it takes a weight off. If you do everything here beautifully, and your lawn still isn't quite as inky as the one across the way, that isn't a failure on your part. Part of that answer was planted 20 years ago in a sod field somewhere in Oregon. What you control is the distance between where your lawn is and where it could be. And that distance, my friends, is enormous. And while I'm being honest, one more, because somebody always asks. Epsom salt. You'll hear it recommended for greening a lawn because Epsom salt is magnesium, and magnesium sits at the center of the chlorophyll molecule. The logic sounds airtight. But Clint Waltz, the extension turfgrass specialist at the University of Georgia, says lawns will rarely be low in a micronutrient like magnesium, and that it's a non-issue for most homeowners. Dr. Linda Chalker-Scott at Washington State makes the same point, and adds that the only way to know for certain is a soil test. And Waltz notes something that made me sit up. Overdoing magnesium sulfate can cause salt injury and lead to deficiencies of other nutrients, iron among them. So the box you bought hoping for a darker lawn could, if you got heavy-handed, lock up the very iron we just spent all that time on. If your soil already has enough magnesium, and most do, adding more does nothing at best. Put your effort into the 5 instead. All right, let's put it together, so you know what your next month looks like. This week, raise the mower deck, take the bag off and leave it off. Get the blade sharpened, or swap in a fresh one. Pace off the yard and write the number down. 3 of the 5, done, and you haven't spent $1. Next weekend, put out the tuna can, find out what your sprinkler actually does in an hour, and start watering deep and early instead of every evening. Then when your feeding window comes, right about Labor Day up north, or when the heat breaks down south, put down a light, steady feeding, not a heavy one. And once the lawn is fed and growing, mix your first light pass of iron in the cool of a still morning. Now what should you expect, and when? I'll be straight with you, because false promises are how trust gets broken. The iron, if you use it, shows fastest. Often within a day or two. The sharp blade shows the next time you mow, when that gray cast lifts. The mowing height and the clippings take 2 to 3 weeks, because the lawn has to grow into the new arrangement, and the deep watering and the steady feeding are the slow ones. 4 to 6 weeks before you look out the window and realize it isn't the same lawn. Thicker underneath, darker without you doing a thing that morning. A lawn is not a light switch, my friends. It's a living thing, and living things move at their own pace. But 6 weeks isn't long. 6 weeks from now is still this year, still this season. You'll be sitting in the same chair on the same porch. So let me leave you with something. I don't much care for the way lawns get talked about these days. Beat the neighbors, make them jealous, win the street. I've never once seen a lawn make anybody happy that way. Here's what a lawn actually is. It's the only floor in your whole life where a child is allowed to fall down. Think about that a second. Every other surface you own, you'd tell them to be careful, slow down, watch that step. But out there on the grass, you let them run, you let them tumble. You let them lie flat on their back and look up at the sky and get grass stains on the good clothes, and nobody's heart jumps. That's what you're taking care of. Not a score, not a scoreboard against the fellow across the fence. A soft place. The deep green is just the sign that you did right by it. That you cut it kindly, fed it gently, gave it a good long drink, and had the sense to leave its own supper lying where it fell. Now before you go, I asked you 2 things already this morning. Here's my last one, and it's the one I most want to hear. Tell me about the lawn you remember from when you were small. How green was it? Whose house was it? And who was the one out there cutting it? I'll read every last one. I always do. Take care of that soft place, my friends, and I'll see you out in the yard.